For those on the right, there is nothing more delicious than watching Bernie Sanders get under the skin of Hillary Clinton like a Vermont tick looking for a comfortable place to live out the winter. And for those on the left, there's nothing that makes them rub their hands with glee better than watching the seeming destruction of a party and what they believe are the inevitabilities of the polls, no matter who they nominate. Which brings us to Wisconsin and the reality of what a possible loss for Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton would actually mean, and who's helping that along. Welcome back to Defender of Liberty from 750 KLIF in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. 570, I should say, is the right number there. Intelligent discourse to the masses weekday afternoons from 3 to 7 Central Time. Grant Stinchfield. All right, Grant, let's talk a little talk radio here for a minute if we can, because in Wisconsin, the thing that everybody is talking about is 6 talk radio hosts on a mission to bust Donald Trump in Wisconsin. Matter of fact, Donald was interviewed by Charlie Sykes in Wisconsin, should anybody forget, and Sykes did not pull any punches with the nominee. Here's what he said.
Mr. Trump, before you called into my show, did you know that I'm a hashtag Never Trump guy?
No, he didn't, and neither did anybody else, which is the interesting thing about it. So here we go, Grant. Is it possible that talk radio made the difference here? And if people want to stop Donald Trump, they better get onto your side and talk radio to do it.
Well, you know, the great thing about talk radio, Ed, is that our listeners are so engaged. And so anybody listening to conservative talk on the Republican side of things is going to be the folks that are going to get out and vote. And I think it's a great platform for ideas. And to the point of those 6 radio hosts in Wisconsin, I actually just came out this week and I offered up an email, and I talked about it on my show, issuing an apology to Governor Rick Perry and Scott Walker for getting off of their train too early. I jumped aboard the Trump train early on because anger got the best of me. And 9 months later, Donald Trump still has no policies in place. He hasn't learned anything. He hasn't improved as a candidate. So I jumped off the Trump train. And now I'm waiting to see what happens.
On the other side of that, let's be fair, too, because you talk about being on the Trump train. It still seems to me that while people discount talk radio in so many senses, it still is that driving force. Look, if you want Donald Trump to be the guy, you got to be in there. You got to be pumping the airwaves because that changes minds, yes?
Yeah, I can only think of 1, maybe 2 talk radio hosts today that are actually supporting Donald Trump. When you look at Trump's campaign, he is clearly not the real conservative in this bunch, but I was willing to overlook that on a big gamble. And I looked at this as, okay, if we take Trump, it's going to be a huge gamble with high reward. But if we're wrong, the losses could be very big. The problem is, though, Ed, as I said, 9 months later, this guy has not improved. It still seems like he's winging it. And I just can't back a guy like that. I started to breathe, and I needed to say, you know what? We could use the people, our listeners in talk radio, to try to get under Washington's skin. We don't need Donald Trump for that. Right now, he's blowing it, man. He shot himself in the foot and blew off both his legs.
But he's blowing it. I get what you're saying here, but if you check out social media more than anything else, they're there, Grant. I mean, they still believe in him. They are fighting. I'm watching on a second-by-second basis going by, and how those people, the Trump followers, believe he is still the answer. Everything that we talk about, that anybody talks about, they blow down immediately. So isn't it fair to say that it's not going to help? The people who are going to vote for Donald Trump will do so, and you have to move on your merry way and start talking about others.
You know, Ed, I believe it goes both ways. I call those types of voters super supporters, meaning they can't see any flaws in their candidate. Ted Cruz has them, too. We hear it on my radio show. If I criticize Ted Cruz, oh, my gosh, the super supporters come out. If I criticize Donald Trump, the super supporters come out. Look, both of these guys have flaws. I wish both sides would see the flaws in there, and we can have a normal discourse. We're all fighting for the same thing. We don't want a Democrat in the White House. Enough is enough.
20 seconds in. Wisconsin, what do you think will happen tonight? And do you think this is a firewall for the people who want Donald Trump out?
I think Donald Trump will probably lose Wisconsin tonight. And what happens then is nobody gets to 1237. It's going to be very hard for Ted Cruz to get there. And if Ted Cruz thinks that the establishment is going to get behind him as the nominee, if he doesn't have that magical 1237, he's wrong. I think the establishment is licking their chops saying, you know what? We're going to get our guy, whoever it might be. We might not even know who it is right now. And Wisconsin, if Ted Cruz wins, is going to ensure that Donald Trump has a real hard time of getting to 1237.
Stick by your guns, people. That's what it's all about. Grant Stinchfield, weekday afternoons at 3 Central on 570 KLIF.
Hey, happy birthday, my man.
Thank you, boss, very much. We appreciate it. I'll see you next week. And we'll see you tonight, 10 o'clock Eastern Time, for our election coverage. Rock on, true believers.